I have a love-hate relationship with the bass sound system in my Ford Bronco. Sure, it's decent for everyday drives, but decent doesn't cut it when you have the top down, or in my case, the hard top removed. The bass sound system is okay. To start, we have these tiny 4-inch speakers up here on the dash. Then we have 6.5-inch speakers down here on the kick panels. Finally, going all the way back to the back of the Bronco, we have those tiny 4-inch speakers in some speaker pods as well. The rear speakers even seem like an afterthought. They're barely audible from the front seats, and they leave your passengers with nothing more than a whisper. Car audio is one of those things that feels like you could spend an infinite amount trying to achieve perfection. But today, we're going to see if for a few $100s we can give my Bronco the sound upgrade it deserves. And the best part, we're doing it step by step so you can follow along. For today's upgrades, we are partnering with ATOTO. Now, they're well known for their Android head units. However, they are expanding into sound equipment for vehicles, like speakers and subwoofers. So that's what we're going to be working with today. Now, we do have two sets of the 6.5-inch speakers right here, one for the kick panels in the front and one set for the rear pods in the back. We do have to remove the stock rear speaker pods because we have to make room for those larger speakers. So we are going to be working with some from Metra, which will fit those 6.5-inch speakers. Based on these specifications, these speakers are supposed to be relatively efficient. Now, what does that mean? What that means is they're supposed to be giving out a good amount of sound while using less power. Now, this is important because it does allow us to use these speakers with the stock head unit that's in the Ford Bronco, and we don't have to add any extra equipment like an amplifier. To make this upgrade as easy as possible, we're going to be using speaker adapters as well as a wiring harness from Metra. This is going to make them plug and play, no cutting or splicing required. We're going to go ahead and leave the link for these as well as anything else we use in the video down in the description below. Now, there is one thing missing from the factory sound system, and that's some bass. Adding a subwoofer can help you feel the music, not just hear it. But buying a subwoofer can be pretty overwhelming. Do you go for the tailgate subwoofer, or do you try to retrofit a subwoofer into the factory location? Or do you give up precious cargo space for a big boombox? We're going to be installing a slim-powered subwoofer. Now, most 8-inch subwoofers will fit underneath the two front seats, but for ours, it is 10 inches, so it is quite a bit of a tight squeeze, and we do not want to crowd our backseat passengers. Instead, we're going to be installing this in the passenger footwell, which I know is unconventional, but it's a great space-saving solution, especially for a two-door Bronco like we have. We'll make sure that it doesn't affect legroom by pushing it as far back as possible and making sure it's secure. Even though we're specifically working with ATOTO equipment today, you can go ahead and follow these steps to install any 6.5-inch speakers or slim-powered subwoofer into your vehicle. We just happen to think that ATOTO has a great value for the price, and they were kind enough to go ahead and send over this equipment for us to showcase for them. First, we'll upgrade the kick panel speakers. While they work together with the dash speakers to deliver your music, the 6.5-inch speaker handle a good portion of the mid-range frequencies. Upgrading them to aftermarket ones can enhance the overall sound quality, adding more depth to vocals and instruments. And the best part, it's the easiest upgrade. While we're not upgrading the 4-inch dash speakers today, that's something to consider for the future. If you have a bigger budget down the line, improving those will further refine your sound. Another optional step that we're skipping today to keep costs down is sound deadening. You could choose to line the front kick panels and the rear speaker pods before installing the new speakers. It's not necessary, but it can help reduce vibrations and improve overall sound quality. Now, while the rear speakers may not be the main focus, they still play an essential role in providing depth and fuller sound experience. Upgrading the rear speakers complements the front ones and helps create a more immersive audio environment for everyone in the vehicle. After we finish the installation, we'll be doing a quick Forscan adjustment to send more power to the rear speakers. This will help balance out the sound and make the most out of our new setup. If you've never used Forscan before, don't worry, we'll talk you through it. And remember, these upgrades are designed to be straightforward. Even if you're new to car audio, you should be able to follow along and get some pretty good results. So step one is getting all of these different panels off to get to the kick panel speaker. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by removing the dead pedal panel right here. It is 3 rectangles up. You'll see an outline, and you want to go ahead and use a small flat-headed screwdriver to go ahead and pull it up. Whew. There we go. So underneath that panel is 2 10mm bolts that we have to go ahead and remove. Now, they are pretty deep in there, so you might need an extension, or in my case, I'm going to be using a T-handle. Because it's at an angle, so it's going to need something to, like, grab it out. So we do have to access this panel right here, which is technically underneath this panel, but I'm thinking if I remove this piece right here, I'll be able to slide this out from under this and avoid having to take off a bunch of other pieces. I'm going to use a plastic pry tool to go ahead and start trying to lift this up. There you go. So now I'm going to go ahead and try to remove this piece right here. There we go. So what I just discovered is there's a hook on this piece that actually goes right underneath this piece, and the hooks are on this piece. So you have to lift up this piece in order to fully detach this piece. So now I'm going to go ahead and remove the grill right here because I think that's going to make it easier to get this piece out. Okay. There are two clips right here that you could use the plastic pry tool to lift up, and you should use the plastic pry tool to lift up first. And these are towards the back of the kick panel. These guys towards the front actually lay underneath. So if you try to pop these out first, you're going to bend them and potentially break them because they are plastic. So actually I can already see on this piece right here, there's a line where this plastic did bend, meaning that now I've kind of compromised the plastic a little bit. It's not broken, but it's a good lesson to know so I don't do that next time. Okay, so now this piece should come right out for the most part. We're going to be using a 7mm thin extension to go ahead and remove the 3 bolts that are holding the speaker into place. I'm going to go ahead and unplug the harness. I just used a flat-headed screwdriver just to go ahead and stick it right in here so the clip would pull right out. After that, I just kind of had to maneuver it a little bit because there are these prongs in the back that were kind of keeping it in place. So I just needed to kind of wiggle it and then it came out. So this right here is the Ford speaker adapter. Now when I went to go ahead and put the new ATOTO speakers in it, you can see it doesn't sit flush. You can see there's like a gap right there, and it doesn't sit properly where we need to screw in the holes. So what I am going to do is, or what I've already done down here, and I'm going to do the rest, is I broke off these tabs because that's what's preventing it from sitting flush. So I broke off these tabs right here just using a pair of sharp cutters, and that way that will eventually be flush once I remove all of these guys. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and test fit it to see when it's flush. So there we go. So I went ahead and these are all snipped and ready to go. So now I'm going to go ahead, put the speakers inside of these, and I'm going to go ahead and screw them in. So this is the screw that it came with. Really, really long. Okay. This is the screw that I'm using right now. Much shorter. So when we were working with the front speakers, we went to go plug in this harness, which we see right here, and we realized that this is actually not the correct harness. When we were purchasing the harnesses in preparation for today, we accidentally purchased rear harnesses. We didn't realize there was a difference between rear and front. These are the front harness right here, the big white plug, not the small gray one. We're gonna leave a link for this down below so that way you guys can go ahead and grab the correct harnesses. This being the correct harness now, what we gotta do is we gotta take these plugs and plug them onto the speaker itself. The bigger plug is the positive side, smaller plug is the negative side. It's really hard to mess these up because these prongs only fit one of these. So the bigger prong, which is on this side where the red wire is gonna be the positive. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna plug that in. Now for the other side, I am plugging in the speaker. There we go. So now we're on the passenger side. Now this one is slightly different from the driver's side. We don't have those two 10mm bolts to take out of the dead pedal over there. Basically all we're doing is popping off panels to get to the speaker down here. I'm gonna start with this panel again right here. for the most part, once you get one of those off, it comes right off. Now we're gonna go ahead and work on this panel. Ooh, it's always scary taking apart plastic. So like we said on the last side, what you gotta do right here is you gotta lift this up, and then you will be able to take this piece out from under it. So this is a 7mm socket right here. Now what we did find on the other side was that the longer with the skinnier end right here actually worked a lot better. Now that it's unplugged, there we go. Just that way you guys can see the comparison. This right here is the old speaker, this is the new one. So right now I'm going ahead and connecting that harness right here. I'm gonna go ahead and plug in the speaker now. Now I'm gonna work on bolting this back into place. Front speakers are put in, so now we're gonna go ahead and work on these pods right here. So I do have to remove these pods first. Again, pressure fit. I was gonna use some pry tools. Oh, no, you don't even need pry tools. All I did was push on it, like within like this, and pull, and it released. Push on that. There we go, almost disconnected. And our speakers are disconnected. So now I'm going to be removing these guys right here. Okay, one Bronco bolt out. Okay. Now that's a clip, I want to say. Yep. Okay. There we go, it has been removed. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the same thing to the other side so I can do these both at the same time. Let's go ahead and take a look. Oh my gosh, these pods are so much bigger. There's the harness that we're gonna need for installing. So I just wanna show you guys the size difference between these, okay? Here is the stock pods that were in the back, and here are the Metra ones that we're going to be putting a speaker in. Like, holy cow, that is so much bigger. So I'm excited to get these on and get the speakers in. So there is a hole right here that I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to snake the cord through right here. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and push this in to get it secure. Okay, that's in, that's secure. So now what we are going to do is I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to take this speaker, and right here you can see these two terminals. We need to go ahead and plug these into these cords here. Now I'm going to go ahead and screw these in using the screws that came with the speakers themselves, because this should work for the pods. I know they didn't work for the front speakers, but these pods are much deeper than the front speaker area. That looks pretty darn good. So now I just have to go ahead and do the same thing on the other pod for the other side of the speaker. Now, these brackets, they do have the 2-door and the 4-door version. Ah, that's nice. So they actually say on it 4-door or 2-door. So I'm just reusing the bolts or the screws from earlier. That's what I found.
because the brackets or the pods didn't come with their own screws for this.
I did make a mistake earlier. I actually had put these on the wrong side and I had them flipped over. So you do want it to have this little arch going up, not down. If you have it going down, you have it on the wrong side.
Before we can go ahead and move on to installing these on the roll bar, there's a few things we have to do first. They have these black retaining clips that's going to help keep the wire nice and tight and snug against the actual speaker pod itself. So the way that we do that is you're going to stick it in this way, and you want to push it in, and then it's going to go and it's going to click onto this piece right here. There we go. So now we go ahead, roll this over, and there we go. The next step is going to be to put a clip on this piece right here. And what this piece is it goes into the roll bar itself to hold the speaker flush against the side. So we use this to make sure that it holds it in place. Now, they do come with a bunch of different color clips and things like that in the bag. So what we were able to determine based on looking and based on the instructions is the 2 orange clips are for the panel pieces right here, and the rest of them are going to be for the grill for the speaker. Okay, so that's on there now. So right now what I'm doing is I'm just aligning everything, and I am going to push it in with those clips. We could hear it click. Well, one of the clips is in. So there's a clip that's going to go right up here, and then there's another kind of guiding tool down here right above where your bolt is going to go in. Now, I like to start this one by pushing it in, because as you can hear, it has to go through quite a bit of plastic. So you could, if you don't push it in with your thumb, then you might just be screwing and screwing, and it's never going to go in because it's just stuck in the plastic itself. So these are clips that are going to be going on the grill for the speaker. There are 8 of these in the package, and there are 4 per side. So we're going to be putting these on these plastic pieces right here, and that's going to hold it in place. Now that these are all on, this will be ready to go. Next, I'm going to go ahead and plug in this piece into the harness. Just like that. Now we're going to get the grill on. I know I'm going to have to move this seatbelt over like this in order to be able to get in here. Okay. There we go.
So we've got the rear pods installed, but they're lacking in terms of sound. So there's something we can do about that. Utilizing a software called Forscan, we're going to make a couple of adjustments. Now, if you're not familiar with Forscan, it's basically software that lets you talk to your Bronco's computer. It's a free software that you can download. Just make sure you have a Windows laptop and an OBD2 to USB adapter, which we will leave linked down in the video description as well. So let's go ahead and dive into how to download Forscan and how to set it up. To get started, you'll need to download Forscan. So head over to Google, type in Forscan download, press enter, and then make sure it's forscan.org. And then you're going to want to go ahead and download the Forscan for Windows, whatever version is up when you're doing this. Now, after you've downloaded and installed it, go back to Google and search Forscan Extended License. And Forscan will actually give you a free extended license, no strings attached. So once again, we're going to go to Get Free Extended License. So what you're going to want to go ahead and do is fill out this form and wait approximately 30 minutes. Just leave the window open and then come back and refresh it. So you won't get an email, but if you refresh this page, it will give you a license key that you download and then link to your version of Forscan. Now we're going to go ahead and go into Forscan, 2 sound adjustments that we need to make. I'm going to click OK here. We're going to connect our vehicle in the bottom left. Make sure all these criteria are met before proceeding. Go ahead and click OK. Please set the scan to MS. I will switch to the MS now and click OK. Now it's on MS. Back to HS for some reason. Click OK. All right, so now Now that the vehicle is ready, and you'll know it based off the bottom left part of Forscan, the screen, it'll say ready right here next to vehicle. We're going to go right here to configuration and programming. You're going to click that. You're going to go to, it's going to be ACM right here as built format. We're going to double click that, and we're going to click this little play button here. So it's going to load it up. We're going to click OK. First, we're turning off the built-in equalizer. Think of it like a sound filter that the Bronco's computer uses to try and make the factory speakers sound better, but when you upgrade to new speakers, that filter can actually mess things up. We want to give our new speakers a clean slate to work with, so we're turning the EQ off. Now, in order to do that, what we need to do is we need to come over to this row labeled 727-01-02, and we're going to change this 01 to 00. So 01 equals equalizer on, but we're going to turn the equalizer off because it's causing some interference or it's blocking some sound going to our new rear speakers. So we're just going to simply change that to 00, and now the equalizer is off. Then we need to let the Bronco know that we've actually upgraded the rear speakers. From the factory, it thinks they're little 4-inch tweeters, but because we put those 6.5-inch speakers back there, we're going to let the Bronco know that they are no longer just a tweeter, but a speaker. In order to do that, we're going to come to 727-01-01, and we're going to change this 1 and 4 to 00. So basically what I'm doing is in the Bronco's computer, 00 stands for speaker, whereas before it was set to tweeter. Now that we've made these changes, we have 00 here and 00 here. Here it means off, and here it just means speakers. So we're going to go ahead and write all of this, and it's going to update the Bronco's computer. Yes. Yes. Okay, we're going to cycle the ignition off and then back on. So we made the changes to Forscan out here in the open top. I would say Erica noticed a difference. It was hard for me. She did hop back in the back and say that the rear speakers definitely as a whole are way better than the factory ones as a backseat passenger. So the only thing that we're really missing is some true bass.
Now for the fun part. We're going to be adding some bass to the Bronco by installing this ATOTO subwoofer, and it's called a slim powered subwoofer because it actually has a subwoofer and an amplifier in one, making it super easy to install. First things first, we're going to go disconnect the battery so we can avoid any electrical shocks while working. Okay, this is going to be a 10mm socket that we're using to go ahead and remove the negative side. And I'm going to try to not take the actual bolts off, but just loosen it. That way I can lift it up and over. As long as it stays right here, we'll be fine. So now what we have to do is we have to go ahead and run this power cable from inside our engine bay to the inside of our vehicle. And the way we're going to do that is by going through the rubber grommet that is in the top left-hand corner underneath the driver's side. So I'm poking a hole through the grommet that connects the engine bay to the inside of the vehicle to run a power wire from the battery over to the inside for the subwoofer. I am using a wire hanger to go ahead and do this because we could not find a grommet poker that was near us that we could do for this video, but that is the smarter decision. It's basically like a screwdriver with a sharp tip that is hollow from the end, from both ends, so you can run the wire right through it, pull it out, and you're ready to go. But we're gonna go the old-fashioned DIY way. Start it with the X-Acto knife and then push through with the wire. Okay, I just started it with a X-Acto knife, so hopefully it'll be a little bit easier to push through.
I think I just got it.
Woohoo! So this is the side of the wire that's going to be going to the inside of the vehicle, and this is the side that's going to be going to the battery. As you can see right here, the fuse is actually on the side that goes into the vehicle, which is kind of weird because usually you would want the fuse to be closer to the side that's getting the power. So it is kind of strange, but we're just going to work with what we got. The way I'm going to feed it through is I'm going to go inside the vehicle where the wire is sticking through the grommet. I'm going to tape this guy to the wire, and then we're gonna slowly pull the wire out, hopefully taking this through the hole with us. So we went ahead and just pulled the wire through the grommet. In the process, the grommet did kind of dislodge itself from the part that it was in. So I guess that is an option if you want to work. It took a lot of work to pull it out, I will tell you. But we are through the grommet, that's all that matters. So now we'll be able to run it to the battery to give it power. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and take this side of the cord and we are going to connect it onto the positive side of the battery. Now, as you can see here, there's multiple different places we can put it. If you don't have an extra nut laying around, you can go ahead and loosen this, put it on here. We happen to have an extra nut that fits right here. So we're gonna go ahead, put this down onto there. And then this is our extra nut that we have that I'm going to tighten onto here. Okay. I'm gonna go get a socket wrench to make sure it's nice and tight. Try to feed the wire down like this. That way when it closes, you don't have it sticking out, affecting the way that this closes. I'm gonna grommet back into place since it moved on us. The next step that we're gonna be doing is grounding for the subwoofer. So we have the actual grounding wire right here, and there's actually a grounding point right above where the speaker is, right here. If you have an 8mm socket wrench like this guy right here, that's probably gonna be your best bet because it is pretty tight. So we wanna go ahead and loosen the bolt. You do have to take out the whole bolt. Now we're gonna go ahead and slide the ground onto the bolt and put it back into place. So after the ground is done, we now have to tap into the factory speaker wire. We have to do this to be able to go ahead and run an audio signal to the subwoofer. So what we're gonna be using today are called Posi-Taps. Now what this is this makes it easy to tap into the cables without having to do any soldering or anything like that. Now the way these work is you are going to screw off the top, and then you're gonna slide the wire that you're trying to connect to into this slit right here. Then you'll go ahead and you will tighten this back onto the barrel, just like that. Then on the opposite side, you will take off the lid. So you're gonna take the wire that you're trying to connect to the other wire, put it in through here. Then you will go ahead with the wire sticking out here. You'll go ahead, tighten it on the other side, and then you will have a connection. On the front right side, you are looking for a yellow wire with an orange stripe and a green wire with a brown stripe. The yellow wire is your positive, the green is your negative. Now we need to go ahead and take some 18 gauge speaker wire to connect it from those speakers to the harness. Now this harness did come with the ATOTO subwoofer, and as you can see, there's two connectors. There's a connector here, which we're gonna use later, but this connector right here, we're actually gonna take off and just use just the wire. So we'll show you that when we get there, but just so you know, we're taking this one off. The way this wire is bought is it is sealed together two different wires. One is silver and one is copper. So wire is wire, but we're gonna go ahead and use the silver as the negative and the copper as the positive, and we need to keep that in our brain so we can do the same on the other side. So first step, I went ahead and I pulled it apart just a little bit, just so that way they can connect to the taps. It'll make it easier for me to do some cable management later. Then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take some wire strippers and I'm gonna strip off the top of both of these. So I took the cap off of our positive side and I'm gonna go ahead and put it on the copper wire, just so that way the wire's poking through like that. Then I'm gonna go ahead, take this, put it in this side right here, and then once I make sure all the wire is in, I don't want any wires to be left out or pushed out. From here, I go ahead and screw in this top. We're gonna go ahead and give it a tug. There we go. Next, we're gonna go ahead and do the same thing on the other side for the negative. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and take off this cap right here. Do the same thing on the other side, where we're gonna take the wire. We are taking the silver wire for the negative side. Gonna go ahead, pull it through there. And then we're gonna take this guy, stick it into the Posi-Tap, and then twist it. Test it. Okay, and we're good. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna cut the speaker wire here. Now this side we are gonna keep kind of short because we are putting the subwoofer on this side, so it makes no sense to have a long amount of wire. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut it using some wire cutters. There we go. Next, we're gonna go ahead and connect to the positive and negative side of the factory speaker for the driver side. So we're gonna be looking at the positive and negative wires on this side to tap into, still using Posi-Taps. Positive is blue and the negative is a gray with a brown stripe. I'm starting with the blue wire, which is our positive. So now I'm gonna go ahead and take this piece and screw it on. Now we have to do the same thing on the gray wire with the brown stripe. Okay. twisting it on. So I went ahead and pulled apart just the top parts, and then I'm gonna go ahead and strip back at the very top. Okay, so just like on the other side, we're gonna go ahead and do the silver to the negative. So we're gonna go ahead and take the silver wire and we're gonna attach it to the gray and brown wire. Gonna stick the cap on it just like that. Then okay, that connection is good. Now we're gonna go ahead, take the copper wire and connect it to the blue wire, which is our positive. Those should be set, ready to go. So I'm about to cut the speaker wire that we're gonna be running over to the passenger side. Now what we did is we actually threw the wire over to the other side, saw how long we're gonna need it, and then gave ourselves a little bit of extra space just in case. So you wanna make sure you give yourself that room for error. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut it here, again, using some wire cutters. The last thing we have to do on this side before we run everything over to the passenger side is we need to wire the remote turn on. We're gonna be wiring that to a fuse that is in the fuse box that's in the cab. It's gonna be fuse number 2. We're using a fuse tap for that. And what the remote turn on is because we do have our power cable ran directly to the battery, if we don't have the remote turn on, it's going to run the sub all the time. So the remote turn on is gonna tell the subwoofer to turn off when the car is off and turn on when the car is on. The interior fuse box is on the left-hand side by the steering wheel, but you do have to drop this panel right here to get to it. So I'm using some plastic pry tools to go ahead, get right here, and I can kind of feel that there's a little bit of resistance, so I'm gonna go to the sides first. You can hear it click. You do wanna be gentle because these clips are plastic. Now that we have the fuse panel dropped, we're gonna go ahead and go to fuse number 2 and pull out the 10 amp fuse that's in it. Now, the reason we're going to fuse number 2 is because that particular fuse only turns on while the car is on. So that's the fuse we wanna go to. Okay, so I'm gonna use a pair of pliers to go ahead and pull it out. There it is. So we have our fuse tap all ready to go. Now we are reusing this fuse tap from a different install, so that's why you can see here the wire is exposed. Usually you would have like a crimped end here that you'd be able to stick the wires into, crimp it, and you'd be good to go. We do happen to have some butt connectors right here. We're gonna slide the fuse tap wire into one side. Once I twist it, make sure it's nice and tight. Okay, that side's in. Now we want to make sure we get the other side. Now this blue wire did come with the ATOTO subwoofer. It is going to go to the other connector that we have on the harness on the passenger side. Okay. So at this point right here is where you would probably have to crimp it on a normal fuse tap without having to add the butt connector. So everything is all connected. So now I'm going to go ahead and put it into slot number 2 in my fuse box. Got it?
Nope. But I see it. Got it.
Okay.
You want me to pull?
Yeah, pull. What we're working on now is actually connecting the speaker wire from both sides to this harness right here. Now there is a piece right here, a connector that we're pretty sure is for an ATOTO head unit, since they do make head units, but we don't need this connector, but we need the wires. So we're gonna be cutting the wires from this connector and connecting them directly to our speaker wire. So we're gonna be starting with the right side, or the passenger side, negative. So we will be connecting the silver wire from the speaker wire to the plain purple. Now for some reason on this harness, the ones with the black stripes are the positive. I'm not sure why that is. It makes more sense for it to be the ground, but it is what it is. So we're gonna be cutting the plain purple. So we're going to go ahead and connect these wires together. Now soldering is ideal, however there is another quick and easy way to connect these wires together. That is the solder and seal connectors. These connectors actually have built-in solder that will melt when you heat it up, so we're going to use a lighter to heat it up and it'll solder the wires together nice and easy without having to use a soldering iron. I'm going to go ahead, so I put the solder connector right here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to twist the wires together, then I will pull this over the wires.
The wires are now twisted together and connected, so I'm going to go ahead and pull this right over. And now I'm going to try to line up the middle of where the wires were twisted together, right in the middle of this piece right here, which is the solder. And then I'm going to grab my lighter. There we go. We can see that the solder is melting, so now I can go ahead. There we go. I'm now going to do the same thing with the positive wire, which is the purple with the black stripe. Going to cut it from the connector. So I'm going to take another one of these solder connectors. Going to slide it onto the purple. I'm going to connect these two wires together by twisting. The next step is to go ahead and connect the driver's side speakers. We're gonna go ahead and start with the silver to the negative, which on this side is just the plain green wire. So I'm gonna go ahead, make sure I'm grabbing just the green one. Gonna take my snippers, and I wanna try to maintain the same length I cut off over here. They're twisted together, pull it through. Try to get the soldering right in the middle, which I did. So now we're gonna go ahead and connect the last wire, which is this copper one, to the driver's side positive. So I'm gonna cut that, that's the green and black wire. The next step is to go ahead and connect these two connectors to these. Now blue to blue, red to red. The blue one does come with a protector that goes over it once it's connected. The red doesn't, so we're gonna go ahead and just tape it for peace of mind. Okay, that one's connected. Now red to red.
It's the next day. I'm excited to go see what my subwoofer sounds like, but while we're testing that, we also have to do some fine tuning, so let's go.
Before we reconnect the battery, let's make sure it's all set up correctly and ready to rock with the rest of the system. First, we'll adjust the gain control. This basically matches the subwoofer's volume to the rest of your speakers. We'll start with the gain turned all the way down and then slowly turn it up while playing some music with good bass. We're listening for that sweet spot where the bass is strong and punchy, but not distorted. Now let's see the low pass filter. This tells the subwoofer which frequencies to play, basically how low the bass goes. We'll start around 80 to 100 Hertz, which is a good starting point for most music, but you can experiment and find out what works best for you. The phase shift on the subwoofer adjusts the timing of its sound waves to match the main speakers, ensuring better bass quality. Setting it to 0 degrees means the subwoofer and speakers work together, while 180 degrees reverses the subwoofer sound to fix any timing issues. And finally, if you're feeling a little extra bass heavy, you can always crank up the bass boost for a little more oomph. This subwoofer has a feature called bass boost. You can adjust it to make the bass stronger. However, if you turn it up too much, it might make the sound a bit unclear and distorted. And that's it for the basic subwoofer setup. Remember, you can always tweak these settings later to get the perfect sound for your taste.
So one thing we did forget to do last night was go ahead and install this adjustment remote right here. So where we're gonna put this is actually right here using some double-sided automotive tape. That way it'll go right here. That way it's hidden from everybody else, but it's easy for me to adjust as the driver. I'm gonna be taking this double-sided automotive tape and I'm going to cut just enough to cover about from the edge of this hole to the edge of this hole, just to make sure we get a good adhere. And then I'm gonna go ahead and stick it to this surface down there, which I've already prepped with some alcohol. Okay. Now I wanna keep in mind that this plug right here is on the bottom side. So when I go ahead and set it up, I do want the knob to be facing upright while this plug is facing down. I'm gonna go ahead and plug it in. I already ran this cord last night, so it's all ready to go. There we go. I'm gonna go ahead and just pull all the excess wire onto the subwoofer side because it'll be easier for me to do some cable management on this side. So I'm gonna pull it slowly. And now we're gonna go ahead and mount the subwoofer, and then it'll be cable management and time to wrap up. When it comes to mounting our ATOTO subwoofer, it comes with screws and some brackets, and then it also comes with these big Velcro
pieces like this. So before you do this part, you definitely want to test fit it to find the exact location that you want, which is what we just did. On top of that, we also found a bracket in our garage that we added some adhesive to just to add a little bit of extra support for the subwoofer. But now it feels sturdy, so I'm going to go ahead and do some cable managing. This project was surprisingly easy to install, and after driving it around for a couple of days, I've got to say, pretty impressed with the quality and the value. If you're on a budget but you want a solid upgrade to your Bronco, this is a great place to start. If you're used to the factory sound system, the difference is going to be night and day. The subwoofer adds just the right amount of bass that was missing from the previous stock audio system, and it creates a much more balanced and enjoyable listening experience. And the upgraded speakers, they make your music sound crisp and clear. Also, keep in mind this whole time we've had the hardtop off, meaning that once we put it back on, there's a pretty high chance that the sound quality is only going to get better. This project took us a couple of days, but with all of the information that we've shared with you guys, you could probably knock it out in a day or in a weekend. If you're looking for the biggest bang for your buck, upgrading the kick panel speakers as well as the subwoofer is going to give you a good improvement in sound quality without breaking the bank. And if you want to take it a step further, or you have passengers in the back seat, you're going to want to go ahead and upgrade those rear speakers and pods for a higher quality listening experience. We'll have links to everything we used in the video description below. If you liked this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more DIY Bronco content. And let us know in the comments what upgrades you're going to do to your vehicle next. We'll catch you on the next one. Bye, guys.